Welcome to my channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and like. Red sand swirled into thick clouds of dust, choking the air as Jack Harlan's ship, Blue Flame, touched down on the unforgiving surface of Kreenar 4. The engines roared, shaking the cockpit before falling silent, leaving a heavy stillness broken only by the wail of desert winds. Jack, a freelance pilot with over a decade of wandering among the stars, wiped sweat from his brow, feeling the residual heat from the control panel radiate against his hand. His dark hair clung damply to his scalp, and his piercing blue eyes squinted as harsh sunlight streamed through the cracked windshield, now a delicate web of fractures. "Just one more run," he muttered, his voice hoarse from smoke and grit. "One more, and I'll retire somewhere with blue seas and palm trees." But Kreenar 4 had no seas, no palms, only an endless desert, wind-scoured rocks, and a ramshackle trading post perched precariously on the edge of the galactic trade belt. This was a haven for drifters, miners, and pirates, a place where law was a vague notion, supplanted by strength and cunning. Jack's ship had taken a beating in a skirmish with pirates near the Varney's Black Hole. The navigation system was dead, the left auxiliary engine had blown, and the fuel tank was leaking, making every second on this planet a gamble with fate. He needed to repair the ship, and fast, or Blue Flame would become a heap of scrap in the red wasteland. Jack grabbed his emergency pack, a worn backpack stuffed with a first aid kit, a flashlight, and a few energy bars, then checked the plasma pistol holstered at his hip. He ran a finger along the barrel, the cool metal offering a small comfort. With a press of a button, the ship's hatch slid open, and scorching air rushed in, carrying the dry, acrid scent of dust and burnt engine oil. He stepped out, heavy boots crunching on the hard-packed sand, eyes narrowing against the blinding glare of Kreenar 4's sun. The trading post loomed in the distance, a chaotic jumble of prefabricated buildings, rusty shipping containers, and haphazardly welded spacecraft debris. They huddled together like frightened beasts, clinging to each other against the vastness of the surrounding desert. A small crowd had gathered near the landing zone, eyeing the newly arrived ship with curiosity. The group was a motley mix of aliens, one with scales that gleamed like diamonds, another towering figure with 4 muscular arms, and a few others with bizarre forms Jack didn't care to study too closely. None seemed friendly, but none drew weapons or approached. On a place like Kreenar 4, that was as good a sign as any. "Quite a show," a gravelly voice cut through, drawing Jack's attention. A tall creature with ashen gray skin like mountain stone and eyes glowing red like embers stepped forward from the crowd. It flashed a grin, revealing sharp, glinting teeth that shone in the sunlight. "Your ship nearly turned this port into a ash pile. I'm Vrock, self-appointed overseer of this junkyard. What's your name, human?" Jack hopped down from the hatch, landing with the ease of someone accustomed to varying gravities across dozens of worlds. He slung the pack over his shoulder, studying Vrock with cautious but non-hostile eyes. "Jack Harlan," he replied, voice steady. "My ship's in rough shape. Auxiliary engines fried, nap systems toast, and the fuel tanks, let's say it's not happy. Anywhere around here sell parts?" Vrock let out a sound like laughter, but it grated like rocks being crushed. "Parts on Kreenar 4? You're a comedian, human. If you're lucky, you might scrounge something from Kalia's scrapyard. No promises it'll work, but it's metal at least." It gestured a sinewy arm toward the heart of the post, where dilapidated rooftops jutted against the crimson sky. "If you need a break, Rust Claw is your only option. The drinks are awful, but they haven't killed anyone immediately." "Thanks for the tip," Jack said, adjusting the pack on his shoulder. "Point the way." Vrock nodded, indicating a sandy path leading to the post's center. "Straight ahead, can't miss it. But watch yourself, human. Kreenar 4 doesn't take kindly to newcomers." Jack gave a curt nod and started walking, his boots leaving shallow prints in the sand. The air was blistering, clinging to his skin like a second layer, and the wind's howl through gaps in the metal buildings sounded like a mournful cry. The trading post grew clearer as he approached. Structures were cobbled from rusted metal sheets, many bearing scars of old ships, a hull fragment with faded lettering, a hatch door from a long-dead warship. Aliens moved along the streets, some hauling cargo carts, others bartering dubious goods in the shadows of alleys. None spared Jack more than a glance, but he felt their probing stares, sizing him up as prey or predator. Rustclaw squatted at the post's heart, a low-slung metal shack that looked like it had been welded together by a drunk during a sandstorm. Its only sign was a rusted steel plate with scrawled lettering, swaying with each gust. Jack pushed through the door, instantly hit by a wave of pungent alien liquor, sweat, and something like burnt engine grease. Inside, dim light flickered from dangling bulbs, many broken, casting patches of shadow and glow. The crowd was a chaotic blend, grimy miners in tattered gear, shifty drifters with darting eyes, and a few Jack pegged as pirates, weapons dangling from belts and dangerous smirks on their faces. "Fresh meat," a voice whispered from a corner as Jack entered, but he ignored it. He'd seen worse, spaceports where knives cut sharper than words, where a wrong glance could mean death. The trick was to act like you belong, keep a hand near your weapon, and never turn your back to the door. He strode to the bar, a warped metal slab likely salvaged from a ship's hull, polished smooth by countless arms. The bartender, an insected creature with 6 bulging eyes and clicking mandibles, eyed him with suspicion. "Something that won't kill a human," Jack said, sliding a credit chip across the counter. He leaned in, scanning the room from the corner of his eye, noting the most dangerous figures. A 4-armed brute in the corner, a guy with an energy rifle propped on his table. The bartender wordlessly fetched a bottle of murky green liquid, poured it into a metal cup, and slid it toward Jack. He took a sip, fighting a grimace as the fiery, acid-like burn seared his throat. As he set the cup down, a movement in the room's corner caught his eye. Amid the cluttered tables, a slender figure glided through, balancing a tray of drinks. Her skin shimmered a faint purple, gleaming like pearl under the bar's dim lights. Long, blue hair cascaded down her back like a shimmering stream, catching the light with each step. Her large eyes, sparkling like twin emeralds, seemed out of place in this filthy, rough-hewn dive. She moved with natural grace, a dancer navigating the chaotic crowd, deftly dodging groping hands and crude remarks with practiced ease. Jack had never seen her species, but something about her, a resilience beneath her delicate exterior, held his gaze. The woman set her tray on a table packed with aliens who looked fresh from an intergalactic prison. One of them, a hulking figure with stone-like, pitted skin and a glowing red cybernetic eye, grabbed her wrist as she turned to leave. "Why so cold, sweetheart?" he growled, his slurred voice thick with menace. He yanked her closer, spilling drinks from the tray, liquid splashing across the table. "Sit with me a while, Lyrian." Jack caught the name, Lyrian, and filed it away. Her face remained calm, but he saw the tension in her shoulders, the way her other hand gripped the tray as if restraining herself. "Let me go, Brack," she said, her voice soft but razor-sharp, like a thin blade. "I have other customers to serve. They can wait." Brack chuckled, his grip tightening. His cronies, a group of 5 with weapons dangling from their belts, laughed loudly, egging him on. One slammed a fist on the table, shattering a glass. Jack felt a surge of hot blood, his heart pounding. He'd seen this scene dozens of times across countless worlds. Grimy bars, power-drunk thugs, and victims with no chance to fight back. A part of his mind urged caution. His ship was broken, his credits were low, and stirring trouble on a strange planet was the last thing he needed. But some lines went beyond reason, boundaries you couldn't cross and still call yourself human. This was one of them. He downed the rest of his drink, the burning liquid setting his throat ablaze, and stood, the chair scraping loudly against the metal floor. "Sorry," he said, voice calm but carrying, as he approached Brack's table. Every eye in the bar turned to him, including Lyrian's emerald gaze, flickering with surprise and wariness. "She told you to let go." Silence gripped the room, broken only by the hum of the ventilation system and the clink of a rolling glass. Brack swiveled his cybernetic eye toward Jack, its red light scanning him head to toe like a targeting system. "Mind your own business, human," he snarled, his voice low like thunder. "This doesn't concern you." Jack shrugged, keeping his exterior cool despite calculating distances, angles, and the order of opponents in the fight to come. He stood 2 meters from Brack, close enough to act but far enough to dodge. "When you touch someone who doesn't want it, you make it everyone's business," he said, voice even but sharp, like a honed blade. Lyrian's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of hope crossing her face before she masked it with composure. Brack released her wrist and stood slowly, his massive frame looming a head taller than Jack. His crew rose too, forming a loose circle. One drew a knife, its steel glinting under the lights. The bar grew quieter, some patrons backing away, others leaning in, eyes gleaming with anticipation. "What do you want, human?" Brack asked, his voice a dangerous rumble, the cybernetic eye emitting a feint whereas it focused on Jack. Jack smiled, a cold grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Just to teach you some manners. Maybe they're not common on Kreenar 4, but where I'm from, you don't touch people unless they ask." Brack roared, and the first punch came as expected, a slow right hook, telegraphed by his shoulders shift. Jack dodged effortlessly, moving like a panther, and countered with a fist to Brack's gut, aiming where most humanoid species kept vital organs. Brack doubled over, groaning, his breath escaping like a gust. But his crew didn't stay idle. They charged, and the bar erupted into chaos. Jack moved like a whirlwind, using everything around him. He grabbed a metal chair, smashing it into the head of a knife-wielding thug, who collapsed in a heap. Another lunged with an electric baton, but Jack rolled across the floor, kicking the man's knee, hearing the crack of bone. He wasn't the strongest or biggest, but he was fast and fought dirty, a skill honed in the brutal spaceports of his past. One tried to grab his throat, but Jack spun, using the man's own arm to choke him before slamming him into a table, splintering the wood. When it was over, Brack and his crew lay groaning on the floor amid shattered glasses and upturned furniture. Jack stood in the wreckage, panting, his right hand throbbing from a punch that hit bone, a bruise forming on his jaw where a kick had grazed him. Blood trickled from a shallow cut on his knuckle, but he stood firm, scanning the room for further threats. The bar was silent for a moment, then murmurs resumed, as if brawls were routine. Some patrons shrugged, returning to their drinks, while the bartender shook its head, muttering about the mess. Lyrian approached, her emerald eyes studying Jack with curiosity and concern. Up close, she was even more striking, high cheekbones, a delicate nose, and lips pressed tight, as if holding back emotion. Her purple skin shimmered, shifting shades under the lights, and her blue hair swayed as she tilted her head. "That was the dumbest thing I've ever seen," she said, her voice clear like silver bells, though tinged with reproach. "Brack works for Thane Kors. Now they'll hunt you like an animal." Jack winced, rubbing his sore hand, feeling the dried blood on his knuckles. "No need to thank me," he said, smirking. Lyrian gave a small smile, quickly hidden, her eyes still wary. "I didn't ask for your help." "Yeah, I know," he replied, voice soft but firm. "Your name's Lyrian, right?" "I'm Jack Harlan." She nodded slightly, as if acknowledging his existence was a concession. "Jack Harlan," she repeated, weighing the name. Then she glanced at the groaning pirates. "Brack's friends will come soon. Kors doesn't like outsiders meddling in his business." "How soon?" Jack asked, voice low, eyes flicking to the door. "Not long," Lyrian said, scanning the bar with the caution of someone used to surviving danger. She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "You should get out of here now." Jack grimaced, rubbing his aching shoulder. "My ship's busted. Auxiliary engines toast, nav system's dead, and I'm pretty sure the fuel tank's leaking like a sieve. I'm not going anywhere." Lyrian frowned, her gaze shifting from caution to calculation, as if reassessing him. "Then you need a place to hide until you can fix it," she said, voice steady but resolute. "My shift ends in an hour. Meet me at the back door." Jack opened his mouth to ask more, but she turned away, gliding through the tables with undiminished grace, as if the brawl had been a minor annoyance. He watched her go, wondering if he'd just been offered help or lured into a trap. On planets like Kreenar 4, kindness often came with a price, and he wasn't sure he could afford it. But options were scarce. He tossed a few more credit chips onto the bar to cover the damage and slipped out the back, stepping into the alley's shadows. The desert air cooled as Kreenar 4's sun sank, leaving a blood-red sky. Jack leaned against the bar's cold metal wall, his right hand resting near his plasma pistol. He inhaled deeply, the scent of dust and rust filling his nose, and listened to the trading post sounds, distant arguments, the clank of machinery, the wind's wail through crevices. Trust didn't come easily, especially in places like this, where betrayal was cheaper than a drink and loyalty lasted only until a better offer. But something about Lyrian, her resilience, the way she faced Brack without flinching, made him want to trust her, if only a little. The back door creaked, and Lyrian emerged, her slender silhouette stark against the faint light from the bar's windows. She'd swapped her server's outfit for tight pants and a fitted jacket, accentuating her graceful form. A small bag hung across her shoulder, and Jack spotted the outline of a concealed pistol under her jacket. She looked at him, eyes glinting with surprise. "You're still here," she said, her voice light but tinged with amusement. "Nowhere else to go," Jack replied, shrugging, though his heart beat a bit faster. "But I'm wondering if waiting for someone who might lead me into a trap is my brightest idea." Lyrian smiled, revealing white teeth that gleamed against her purple skin. The smile was both alluring and dangerous, like a blade wrapped in silk. "If I wanted you dead, I'd have let Brack handle it," she said, her tone teasing but sharp. "He's not bright, but he's strong, and you just made him very angry." "Fair point," Jack said, straightening, the pack sliding down his shoulder. "What's the plan, Lyrian?" She glanced around the alley, her blue hair shimmering in the dim window light. "Not here," she said, voice low and cautious. "Follow me, and stay quiet. Kreenar 4 has ears everywhere." Jack nodded, and she led the way, slipping through narrow alleys between containers and shacks. The trading post was larger than he thought, with hidden corners where aliens bartered in whispers. A few nodded to Lyrian, but eyed Jack with suspicion, as if he were a puzzle piece that didn't fit. "You're popular," Jack whispered after the third time, when a scaled creature bowed to her. "I've been here a while," she replied, voice even but guarded. Something in her tone, a restraint, as if each word was chosen carefully, piqued Jack's curiosity, but he didn't press. In places like this, the past was often something people buried. They wove through sandy, debris-strewn paths until they reached a desolate edge of the post. There, blue flame sat forlornly, its scorched, dented hull resembling a wounded beast awaiting death. Lyrian approached, touching a large burn mark on the ship, her fingers tracing the metal like she was reading a book. "Halberd class, right?" she said, a hint of admiration in her voice. "Old, but built to last. Your problems aren't as bad as they look. Burned auxiliary engine, fried cooling system, and I'm betting a leaking fuel tank. But the power core's still good, isn't it?" Jack raised an eyebrow, impressed and a touch surprised. "You know ships," he said, not hiding his curiosity. "More than a barmaid." Lyrian turned, her eyes locking onto his, gleaming like gems. "I know a lot," she said, voice even but with a challenge. "Before I got stuck here, I was an engineer on an intergalactic freighter. I could fix ships like this in my sleep." "What happened?" Jack asked, though part of him already suspected the answer. Places like Kreenar 4 weren't destinations. They were where people ended up, often for painful reasons. Lyrian's brow furrowed, her eyes darkening like a sky before a storm. "Thane cores happened," she said, her voice dropping, laced with suppressed anger. "He attacked our ship, killed those who fought back, sold the rest as slaves. I got trapped here, serving drinks to his scum, waiting for a chance to get out." Jack felt a surge of burning anger, not just for Lyrian but for everyone crushed by monsters like cores. "I'm sorry," he said, voice low but sincere. "Don't be," Lyrian replied, turning back to the ship, her fingers still on the scorched metal. "I'm alive. And I won't be here forever." She looked up, eyes resolute. "I can fix this ship, but we need good parts, not the junk in Kalia's scrapyard." Jack's lips twitched, sensing the story's turn. Let me guess, he said. Good parts are only on Korz's ship? Lyrian's smile was sharp as a blade. You catch on quick, Jack Harlan. Korz's ship, Black Knight, docks here monthly for protection money and deliveries. It's due tomorrow morning. And you want to steal from it? Jack asked, though the question was almost redundant. He recognized her look, the gaze of someone who'd been planning for a long time, waiting for the right moment. I want off this damn planet, she corrected, stepping closer, her voice low and determined. You help me get clear of Korz, I help you fix your ship. Fair deal? Jack studied her, trying to read past her calm exterior. There was something she wasn't saying, he was sure, a secret hidden behind those emerald eyes and that razor smile. But he needed her skills, and deep down, he wanted to help her, even if it cost him dearly. Deal, he said, finally extending his hand. Lyrian glanced at his hand, then gave a slight nod instead of shaking. Good. But we need a hideout until morning. Brack's friends will come for you, and they don't ask before shooting. What kind of hideout? Jack asked, eyes fixed on her. I've got a place, she said. Not fancy, but safe. Let's go. She led him back into the alleys, darkness enveloping them as Kreenar 4's sun vanished, leaving a sky ablaze with stars. Jack followed, hand near his pistol, mind swirling with questions. Who was Lyrian, really? Why risk helping a stranger like him? And most importantly, what was he diving into? But as he watched her slender form glide through the shadows, he knew one thing for certain. Whatever the danger, he was ready to find out. Dawn on Kreenar 4 erupted like a wildfire, crimson light flooding through the container's window, bathing the cold metal floor in gold. Jack Harlan stirred on the narrow cot, his body aching from last night's brawl. He blinked, shaking off exhaustion, and noticed Lyrian already awake. She stood by the window, her slender silhouette framed in the early glow, her blue hair shimmering like a halo. Her hand gripped a handheld device, her face calm yet focused, like a warrior steeling for battle. The previous night lingered in Jack's mind, the softness of her purple skin, the intensity in her emerald eyes, and the unexpected connection between them, like two lost stars finding each other in the dark. Morning, he said, voice hoarse, sitting up and running a hand through his disheveled hair. A bruise on his jaw throbbed, a reminder of Brack's kick. Lyrian turned, her eyes glinting with a faint smile. Humans sleep deeply, she teased, though her tone carried a trace of worry. I've been up for hours, planning our near-suicidal mission. Jack smirked, standing and stretching, feeling his muscles protest. Korz's ship here yet? An hour ago, she replied, tossing him the device. Its screen displayed a detailed schematic of Black Knight, Thane Korz's pirate vessel, with technical storage areas marked. I've located the parts cache. But there's a big problem. Jack studied the schematic, impressed by her precision. Pathways, security doors, and guard positions were meticulously noted, as if she'd studied the ship for years. What's the problem? He asked, his gaze shifting from the screen to her. Lyrian sat beside him, close enough that he felt the warmth of her body. Her pale purple skin gleamed in the light, and her faint scent, like metal mixed with dried flowers, momentarily distracted him. Korz isn't just a pirate, she said, voice low and grave. He's part of the Triad Syndicate, the biggest slaving and arms-dealing outfit in this sector. Black Knight isn't just carrying parts, it's got living cargo. Jack's brow furrowed, a chill running down his spine. You mean slaves? Exactly. She nodded, her eyes darkening like the desert sky before a storm. And there's something else you need to know, Jack. She took a deep breath, as if summoning courage. Korz was my mentor. Jack froze, as if the container's floor had collapsed beneath him. Mentor? What do you mean? Lyrian looked at her hands, fingers tightly interlaced. Before I was stranded here, I wasn't just a freighter engineer. I was Korz's apprentice, back when he was a freelance technician, before ambition turned him into a monster. He taught me everything, from fixing power cores to hacking security systems. But when he joined the Triad, he betrayed us all. He killed my other instructors, sold my fellow apprentices into slavery. I escaped, but got stuck on Kreenar 4, living in his shadow. Jack's anger flared, not just at Kor's but at the pain in Lyrian's voice. He placed a hand on hers, feeling a slight tremble. You don't just want to escape, he said, voice firm. You want to end him. Lyrian looked up, her eyes blazing with resolve. He has to pay, Jack. Not just for me, but for everyone he's destroyed. But I need you. Not just for your ship. He squeezed her hand gently, their eyes locked. You've got me, he said, voice steady. But stealing parts won't cut it. If Kors is trafficking slaves, we've got to do something. She nodded, a small smile breaking through. I knew you'd say that. They prepared swiftly, gathering weapons and tools in silence. Lyrian donned a sleek black outfit, its pockets concealing knives and hacking devices. Jack checked his plasma pistol, the cool barrel of familiar comfort. Their plan was to infiltrate Black Knight while Kors's crew caroused at Rust Claw, grab the parts, and find evidence of the Triad's slaving. If lucky, they'd sabotage the ship to stop Kors from pursuing. The trading post buzzed more than usual as they slipped toward the docking bay. Kors's crew was unmistakable, loud, aggressive, with guns slung at their hips and the cold eyes of killers. Charming bunch, Jack whispered, as they crouched behind a crate to avoid a laughing group heading for the bar. Most are gone, Lyrian said, checking a wrist device displaying the ship's signals. Just a few guards left on Black Knight. They moved like shadows, weaving through containers and scrap piles to the dock where Black Knight loomed. The massive ship, its black metal hull gleaming and cannons glinting, looked like a slumbering beast. Lyrian knelt by a security panel, her fingers dancing over a hacking device, green lights flashing. We're in, she whispered as the door slid open. Jack took the lead, dropping a guard with a swift strike to the neck, dragging him into the shadows. Inside, Black Knight was surprisingly pristine, its metal corridors gleaming under ceiling lights. Doesn't feel like a pirate ship, Jack muttered, gripping his pistol. Kors craves control, Lyrian replied, guiding them through narrow passages. He rules everything. They climbed down a maintenance ladder, avoiding the main areas where guards' footsteps echoed. The lower deck was dim, filled with the drone of machinery. Lyrian unlocked the technical storage, and Jack gaped at the cache, brand new components, from power cores to plasma conduits, neatly arranged like a lab. You weren't kidding about quality, he said, helping her gather the needed parts. Too easy, Jack whispered, unease rising. In places like this, ease often signaled trouble. Don't jinx it, Lyrian shot back, stuffing a stabilizer into her bag. But a faint moan from behind stopped them, a sound of pain, human or otherwise. They listened, and it came again, clearly a plea for help. Storage hold? Jack asked, nodding at a nearby metal door. Schematic says it's empty, Lyrian said, her voice tight. They approached, and she hacked the lock in seconds. The door slid open, revealing a horrific sight. Inside was a makeshift cage, holding about 30 aliens, from fragile, feathered bird-like beings to scaled creatures hard as steel. They were chained to walls and floor, many bruised and malnourished. The stench of despair hit Jack like a fist, twisting his gut. Lyrian whispered, "My God," her purple face paling, eyes wide with horror. A small, bird-like creature near the door looked up, its large eyes brimming with desperation. "Help, help us," it rasped in common, its voice faint as a dying ember. Jack's grip tightened on his pistol, rage burning like wildfire. "Slaves," he growled, voice shaking with fury. "Worse," Lyrian said, hands trembling as she checked the chains. "Merchandise. Kors sells them to arenas, collectors, or labs. Their plan to grab parts and slip away dissolve like sand in a desert wind." Jack looked at the desperate faces, eyes flickering with faint hope, bodies gaunt from hunger, and knew he couldn't abandon them. He turned to Lyrian, seeing his resolve mirrored in her gaze. "We're getting them out," he said. "That'll complicate things," she replied, already prying chains with a small tool. A lot. Complicated's my specialty, Jack said, kneeling to free a green scale being. How long before the crew's back? Not long enough, Lyrian answered, fingers moving fast. And one more thing, Kors is on the ship. He never leaves with the crew. As if summoned, a cold voice echoed from the doorway. Lyrian, I knew you wouldn't die so easily. Thane Kors stood there, towering, his gray skin glinting like living steel. His golden eyes, bright as searchlights, swept the room, lingering on Jack before returning to Lyrian. An energy sword hung at his belt, its blade humming faintly. His smile was razor-sharp, a honed knife. My dear apprentice, Kors said, voice smooth but deadly. You brought me a gift? A mere human? Jack stepped forward, shielding Lyrian, his grip tightening on the pistol. I'm no gift, he said, voice hard. I'm your problem. Kors laughed, his gaze dismissing Jack like a toy. I remember you, Lyrian. Your brilliance, your stubbornness. But bringing a human here? You disappoint me. Shut up, Kors, Lyrian snarled, the first time Jack saw her lose composure. We're here to take what's ours. Kors tilted his head, as if considering. What's yours? These wretches? He gestured at the slaves, some whimpering at his name. Or parts for your junker ship? Or... He stepped closer, eyes locked on Lyrian. You want something else back, don't you? Jack felt Lyrian stiffen beside him. What's he talking about? He asked, voice low, eyes never leaving Kors. Lyrian didn't answer immediately, but Kors's laugh grew louder. She didn't tell you, did she? About her legacy? Ask her why she really wants to ruin me. Lyrian turned to Jack, her eyes filled with pain and guilt. Jack, I'll explain later. We need to go now. But Kors raised a hand, and a metal door slammed shut, trapping them in the hold. No one's going anywhere, he said, drawing his energy sword, its blade flaring with lethal blue light. But I'll give you a chance. Human, you want to protect her? Fight me. Win and I let you go. Lose and... He shrugged, his smile widening. You know how it ends. Jack's grip tightened on his pistol, but Lyrian's hand rested on his shoulder, fingers squeezing lightly. Don't, Jack, she whispered. He's baiting you. He's stronger than anyone you've faced. Listen to her, Kors said, advancing, his sword carving a glowing arc on the floor. But refuse, and I'll kill them all now. Jack glanced at the slaves, their eyes brimming with hope and fear. A fair fight with Kors was suicide. He was massive, fast, and trained to kill. But Kors was arrogant, and arrogance was a weakness. A crazy plan sparked in Jack's mind. Fine, he said, stepping forward, dropping his pistol to the floor. But no swords. Bare fists. I win, we take the slaves and leave. Kors raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Bare fists? You're a foolish human. I accept. Lyrian grabbed his arm, eyes wide with fear. Jack, don't. He'll kill you. Trust me, he said, squeezing her hand, his gaze steady. I've got a plan. They moved to a wide cargo bay, its metal floor scarred with burns and cluttered with crates. Kors shed his coat, revealing a muscular body that gleamed like a machine. Jack ditched his belt, keeping only a small dagger hidden in his boot, a gift from a long-dead friend. Lyrian led the slaves to a corner, their eyes following with fragile hope. Kors struck first, lightning fast, a punch grazing Jack's chest. Jack dodged just in time, countering with a kick to Kors's knee, but it felt like kicking steel. You're slow, human, Kors taunted, unleashing a barrage of blows, each like a sledgehammer. Jack moved, using the bay's space and clutter. He vaulted over a crate, rolled across the floor, and rigged a cable as a trap. Kors sliced it effortlessly, but the distraction let Jack plunge the dagger into his thigh. Kors roared, gray blood seeping, but didn't fall. Well done, he said, eyes glinting with thrill. But not enough. From the corner of his eye, Jack saw Lyrian at a control panel near the door, fingers flying. She gave a subtle nod. He understood, she was prepping an escape. He had to keep Kors occupied. "You talk a lot about power," Jack said, panting, blood trickling from his lip. "But you're just a bully. Nothing special." Kors roared, charging faster. Jack dodged, luring him to a corner stacked with flammable fuel drums, their oily stench thick. As Kors swung, Jack rolled back, kicking a drum into him. It burst, liquid splashing Kors. Lyrian shouted, "Jack, now!" Jack pulled a flare from his pocket, a small device he'd carried since his days running cargo through war zones. He ignited it, tossing it into the fuel. Flames erupted, a red wall between him and Kors. Kors stumbled back, snarling, his hair and coat singed. "Run!" Lyrian yelled, opening the bay door via the panel. Jack sprinted to the slaves, pulling them through the door. Lyrian ran beside him, leading through narrow corridors. Alarms blared, red lights flashing on the walls. "Where's the auxiliary bay?" Jack asked, hoisting a frail creature onto his shoulder. "Ahead, 2 levels down," Lyrian replied, checking her wrist device. "There's a shuttle." They scrambled through maintenance ducts, lifting slaves through tight spaces. A large, gray-skinned alien shook its head at a narrow duct. "I won't fit," it said, voice deep. "I'll stay, fight." "No one stays," Jack said, shoving it toward a wider tunnel. "Lyrian, take him that way. I'll get the rest." Lyrian hesitated, eyes full of worry. "Jack, don't die." "Not in the plan," he replied, flashing a grin despite his pounding heart. They split up, Jack guiding a small group through a cramped vent, sweat dripping down his back. Footsteps of Kors's crew echoed nearby, and Kors's voice, now laced with fury, ordered a search. After tense minutes, they reached a large junction. Lyrian and the gray-skinned alien were waiting. "Auxiliary bays below," she said, pointing to a downward duct. They pressed on, moving silently, only their ragged breaths and the clank of metal underfoot breaking the quiet. At last, they reached a vent grate overlooking the auxiliary bay, where a shuttle sat ready, its engines glowing faintly. "That's our way out," Lyrian whispered. "But we've got to cross open ground." Jack peered down. The bay was clear, but guards' footsteps approached. "You go first, start the shuttle," he said. "I'll bring them down." Lyrian kissed him fiercely, their breaths mingling. "Don't let me down," she whispered, then dropped lightly to the bay floor, racing to the shuttle. The gray-skinned alien followed, and they vanished inside. Jack rallied the slaves, prepping for the final sprint. But the small, bird-like creature clutched his sleeve. "Human," it said, voice trembling. "Why help us? No gain for you." Jack paused, the question hitting deeper than expected. "Because it's right," he said, voice firm. The creature tilted its head, eyes glimmering. "Right? Strange. But good." Jack smiled, patting its shoulder. "Yeah, maybe so." The shuttle's engines hummed to life, a hopeful sound in the dark. Lyrian had done it. "Ready?" Jack asked the slaves, scanning their determined faces. "Run hard, don't stop." They nodded, and Jack took a deep breath, pain flaring in his side from the fight with Kors. "Go!" he shouted, leading the charge into the bay's shadows, heart pounding with hope and fear. The shuttle burst from Black Knight's auxiliary bay like a flaming arrow, its engines roaring as Lyrian pushed it beyond its limits. Inside, the freed slaves clung to each other, their ragged breaths mingling with the rattle of metal under strain. Jack Harlan squeezed through the crowded cabin, pain stabbing his side from the fight with Thane Kors, blood seeping through his torn shirt. Through the windshield, Kreenar 4's crimson surface receded, sand swirling into hazy clouds. But behind them, Black Knight fired up its main engines, a brilliant green glow flaring, and 2 smaller warships launched like predators on the hunt. "We've got company," Lyrian said, voice taut, her hands dancing across the controls, the screen's glow reflecting on her pale purple skin. Her blue hair was disheveled, sticking to her sweat-dampened forehead, but her emerald eyes remained sharp, focused. Jack dropped into the co-pilot's seat, checking the radar, his gaze scanning the blinking red dots. "Can we outrun them?" he asked, though he suspected the answer. In this? Lyrian grimaced, slamming the throttle forward. It's a shuttle, not a fighter. They'll catch us in minutes. Jack clenched his jaw, the pain in his side a sharp reminder of the stakes. He glanced at the rear cabin, where the slaves, 30 beings of every kind, from delicate feathered creatures to steel-scaled giants, sat packed together, their eyes brimming with hope and fear. Then we don't run, he said, voice firm. Head for my ship. Lyrian turned, her eyes flashing with surprise and doubt. Your broken ship? Blue Flame? What for? Trust me, Jack replied, flashing a confident grin despite the uncertainty gnawing at him. I've got a plan. The shuttle skimmed low over the desert, trailing a kilometers-long wake of red dust. Black night and its warships closed in fast, the gap shrinking. Missile! Lyrian shouted as the radar blared, a bright red streak racing toward them. Jack grabbed the secondary controls, yanking the shuttle into a sharp roll, prompting cries of fear from the slaves. The missile grazed past, exploding in the air, the shockwave rattling the hull. How are you so good at this? Lyrian asked, a mix of worry and admiration in her voice, her hands still wrestling the controls. 10 years dodging pirates. Jack shot back, weaving through a barrage of cannon fire from the warships, green bolts flashing past the windshield. Just stick with me. They reached Blue Flame in minutes, landing the shuttle beside it in a whirlwind of red dust. Jack's ship sat forlornly, its scorched, dented hull a testament to battles survived, like an old warrior refusing to yield. Everyone out, Jack ordered, popping the shuttle's hatch. Get to Blue Flame, now. The slaves scrambled to obey, the gray-skinned being, a former mechanic before enslavement, helping the weaker ones, lifting them over the searing sand. Lyrian ran beside Jack, her gaze lingering on the bloodstains spreading across his shirt. You're hurt worse than you're letting on, she said, voice thick with concern. Later, he replied, slamming a fist into Blue Flame's control panel to open the hatch. Those parts we grabbed, can they fix the weapons system? Yes, Lyrian said, diving into the engineering bay, tools already in hand. But not the engines. We can't take off. Don't need to, Jack said, his eyes glinting with a reckless idea. We just need to hit them hard. Inside Blue Flame, they worked at a frenetic pace. Lyrian integrated the stolen parts into the weapons system, her purple hands moving like a dancer's, the power core's glow illuminating her face. The slaves, many with technical skills from their past lives, pitched in, a feathered being rewired conduits, a scaled giant tightened bolts. Jack darted through the ship, checking the plasma cannons and targeting array, sweat dripping down his back despite the chilly air. Through the cockpit window, black night loomed above, its cannons glowing like a beast's eyes. The two smaller warships circled, priming for attack. Korza's voice crackled over the comms, cold and arrogant. Lyrian, I thought you were smarter. Hiding with a human and a pack of refuse? Surrender, and I might spare a few. Lyrian gripped Jack's hand, her eyes resolute, gleaming like gems. Ready when you are, she said, voice steady. Jack squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth of her purple skin. Kors just made a mistake, he said, activating the comms. Hey Kors, remember me saying humans don't quit? Let me show you. He hit the fire button. A blast of energy erupted from Blue Flame's plasma cannon, striking Black Knight's main stabilizer. The pirate ship lurched, secondary explosions rippling along its hull, white sparks flaring like fireworks. Direct hit. Lyrian cheered, clutching the console. Black Knight lost control, crashing into the desert a kilometer away, the impact sending a massive plume of red sand skyward like blood. The slaves erupted in cheers, their voices, a chorus of species, blending into a symphony of triumph. But the celebration was brief. The radar screamed. 2 warships were still active, charging with lethal speed. They're not giving up, Lyrian said, her hands racing to reload the cannon. Jack studied the radar, calculating fast. Target the left ship, he said. I'll handle the right. Lyrian nodded, and they moved in sync, like partners who'd fought together for years. She fired a plasma burst, hitting the left ship's engine, which exploded in a fireball. Jack manually aimed the cannon, locking onto the right ship's cockpit, and fired. The second explosion lit the desert sky, metal shards raining down like a storm. Silence fell over the cockpit, broken only by Jack and Lyrian's heavy breaths. He slumped into the chair, adrenaline fading, leaving a throbbing ache across his body. Lyrian touched his forehead, her fingers gentle but worried. "You need a doctor," she said, her eyes scanning the blood on his shirt. "Now. I'll manage," he said, though the pain in his side felt like a knife twisting. "We've got to fix the ship before Kors recovers. He's not the type to die easy." With Black Knight disabled, they turned to repairing Blue Flame. Lyrian led the slaves, leveraging their skills. The grayskin being, Torv, tuned the power core with astonishing precision. A feathered creature, Syl, fixed the cooling system with delicate, bird-like fingers. By dusk, the engines hummed, not perfect but enough to lift off and escape Kreenar 4. Lyrian pulled Jack into the small medbay, forcing him to sit as she dressed his wounds. Her gentle touch dulled the pain, the med scanner's light glowing on her purple skin. "You're lucky," she said, applying nanobandages to his side. "Deep, but it missed your organs." "I'm lucky for a lot of things," Jack replied, taking her hand, feeling its softness. "Meeting you's the biggest." Lyrian flushed, her purple skin darkening, her eyes softening. "Even after I dragged you into this mess?" she asked, her tone teasing but sincere. "Best mess I've ever been in," he said, smiling, his fingers brushing her blue hair, soft as silk. She paused her bandaging, gazing at him, eyes shimmering. "What now, Jack? When we leave Kreenar 4? He looked to the cargo bay, where the slaves rested, sharing food and stories. "They need new homes, or to get back to their old ones," he said. "I want to help them. Not just drop them at the first planet we find." Lyrian nodded, her eyes bright with empathy. "I know planets that welcome refugees. The Emerald Cluster, my home, is a good start. It's a mission worth doing. With you by my side, I think it'll be amazing," Jack said, voice soft, pulling her closer. She smiled, kissing him slowly, deeply, their breaths entwining. "I want that too," she whispered, her hand on his chest, feeling his strong heartbeat. But a distant explosion interrupted them. Jack and Lyrian rushed to the cockpit, spotting smoke rising from Black Knight's crash site. "He's alive," Lyrian said, voice tense, checking the radar. A faint signal blinked, moving away from the wreck. "Kors," Jack growled, gripping the chair. "He doesn't quit." Lyrian turned to him, eyes resolute. "Neither do we. But right now, we get these people to safety. Kors will wait, he always does." Jack nodded, though anger still burned in his chest. "Fine. But this isn't over." They returned to work, prepping Blue Flame for flight. Torv, the grayskin being, entered the cockpit, his eyes calm. "Human," he said, voice deep. "You gave us freedom. Why?" Jack looked at Torv, then at Lyrian, her gaze encouraging him. "Because I know what it's like to be trapped," he replied. "And if we don't help each other, we've got nothing." Torv tilted his head, considering. Strange. But honorable. He extended a massive hand, and Jack clasped it, feeling the strength in the grip. As Kreenar 4's sun set, the trading post held a small feast for Jack, Lyrian, and the freed slaves. Those once cowed by Kors now gathered, sharing food and stories, their eyes alight with hope. Jack stood at Blue Flame's hatch, taking a final look at the red desert. Despite its dangers, he no longer despised it. It had brought him Lyrian, and that was worth every risk. Lyrian joined him, her blue hair fluttering in the desert wind, her eyes sparkling like stars. "Any regrets?" she asked, standing close, their shoulders brushing. "Not a single one," he replied, turning to her. "You." She shook her head, smiling. "It all feels right. Especially you." She drew him into a private cabin, closing the door against the feast's noise. From her bag she produced a silver silk scarf, delicate and shimmering like woven starlight. I want you to see this, she said, her eyes playful yet earnest. That first night, when you stepped in for me, you didn't know what you were getting into. But you did it anyway. Why? Jack recalled that moment, Lyrian facing Brack, her eyes defiant despite fear. Because I saw you, he said, touching her cheek, feeling its softness. Not just how you look, but your strength, your fire. You were worth fighting for. Lyrian smiled, her eyes glistening. In Zytherian culture, giving a scarf is a sign of absolute trust. Accepting it means you accept me, all of me, scars, secrets, and all. She offered the scarf, and Jack took it, his fingers gliding over the silk, like holding a piece of the night sky. I accept, he said, voice firm, pulling her into his arms. They kissed, deep and fierce, as if sealing a vow to the cosmos. As blue flame lifted off, leaving Kreenar 4 behind, Jack and Lyrian stood in the cockpit, gazing at the endless stars. The freed slaves, now comrades, rested in the cargo bay, sharing plans for their futures. Where to first? Jack asked, his hand on Lyrian's shoulder. The Emerald Cluster, she replied, her eyes brightening at the mention of home. My people will help them. And I want you to see where I grew up. Sounds perfect, Jack said, kissing her forehead, feeling the warmth of her purple skin. And after that? Lyrian looked at him, eyes shining like stars, voice full of hope. Anywhere, as long as we're together. But in the cockpit's corner, the radar pinged a faint signal. Cores, moving somewhere in the dark. Jack tightened his grip on Lyrian's hand, his eyes hardening. He'll come back, he said. And we'll be ready, she replied, her hand clasped tightly in his. Blue flame soared into space, carrying a crew of free souls and an unspoken promise. Whatever the universe threw at them, they'd face it together, like stars that never lose their way. Dear listener, as the stars of Kreenar 4 fade and blue flame sails into the cosmic night, I hope Jack Harlan and Lyrian's journey has etched itself into your heart. Their tale, born in the crucible of a desert trading post, forged through defiance and trust, came to me in the quiet hours when the universe feels vast yet intimate. It's a story of human grit, of seeing strength in another's scars, and of bonds that shine brighter than any star. Jack, a wanderer with a battered ship, and Lyrian, a Zytherian with secrets and resilience, remind us that heroism isn't in grand gestures but in choosing to act, to connect, even when the odds burn like a supernova. What does it mean to truly stand for someone? This question pulsed at the story's core as I wove the red sands, plasma cannons, and the silver scarf's delicate promise. Jack's choice to fight for strangers, Lyrian's courage to reclaim her future, they teach us that strength lies in compassion, in refusing to let the universe's cruelty dim our light. The HFY spirit thrives here, humanity's stubborn will to help, to love, to endure, no matter how broken the ship or how vast the void. Their bond, sealed under starlight, whispers that trust, once given, can outlast any storm. Your thoughts, dear listener, are the stardust that shapes this tale's orbit. Did Jack's reckless heroism spark your fire? Did Lyrian's quiet strength move you? Was Korza's lingering shadow enough to make you wonder what lies beyond the horizon? As I chart new worlds, galactic outposts, alien alliances, or the next clash with a foe like Kors, your feedback is my compass. Share your awe, your questions, or even your frustrations. Like Jack and Lyrian's clasped hands, we're linked, writer and reader, each fueling the other's journey through imagined cosmos. What lesson lingers with you? Perhaps it's that even in the darkest ports, a single act of courage can ignite hope. Or that trust, like a Zytherian scarf, binds us to those who see our true selves. Until our paths cross again, keep looking to the stars, and watch the shadows. Kors is out there, and his story isn't done. Neither is ours.